Welcome to the SparkCom video podcast. We have an interesting topic today. We wanted to talk while the presses are hot, and that has to do with some of the things happening regarding Facebook. So, how are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing great.
So, this is a sort of middle of the week podcast. So, we wanted to address this quickly, and of course, part of what we do is show relevance in what we produce. So we'll just jump right in. Adam, you want to give us your thoughts on what's happening right now with Facebook?
Sure. Today's Tuesday, June 30th, and we have a boycott underway on Facebook. We've seen some giant companies, Unilever, Verizon, REI, Levi's, Procter & Gamble, over 100 companies, Coca-Cola, that are boycotting placing ads on Facebook. Now, some of these are also reaching out to the rest of social media, including Twitter, but the focus of this boycott has been on Facebook. And I think it's important to bring up that here we have one of the trendiest companies imaginable. They created social media the way we think of it today. They're the leader by far with Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, WhatsApp. They amount to almost a third of all the volume that occurs on the internet. You can't be more in terms of understanding trends, and they just blew it.
So give us your thoughts on how they blew it and how they can recover.
Yeah, so here we had the Black Lives Movement come up, and as I said in our interview a couple of weeks ago, it matters. Black Lives Matter matters. And what we have to do is pay attention to trends and what's going on in society. We saw that there was a group of people that felt underserved, felt like their needs were unserved. This has been true for a long time, but now it bubbles up to the forefront. And what does it do? It catches Facebook in a situation where they've been paying no attention. They've been allowing politicians to basically say anything on the internet that they want to say. So this was an executive decision made a couple of years ago by the leadership of Facebook to say, we're not going to try to pay attention to the content on a lot of our platform. We're going to ignore, specifically, we're going to ignore a lot of what politicians have to say. Even if it's hateful, even if it's mean, even if it's completely false, we're just going to ignore it. And we're going to leave that up to you, to the viewers. And what happened was all these people that have been underserved and unserved said, this is not fair because they're picking on us. And they're really taking advantage of us. And they made that clear. So here was Facebook in this situation where they should have done something. They should have weeks ago recognized that the policies they had were not working. They were allowing the things that people were protesting against to happen on their platform, and they didn't do anything. And when they didn't do anything, it spilled over until their customers, who are the advertisers, picked up on it and said, whoa, if these guys that run this platform aren't going to do anything to address what's going on in society today, we have to move away from it. You know, we can't have one of our ads, the ads on Facebook are computer generated. So you get some material or content that goes on Facebook and then an ad shows up beside it. Well, if there's some kind of hate speech or some outright lies by some politician and next to it is a product, for sale, then your mind can associate the two. And they said, we just can't have that. We can't have it occur. But what it demonstrates is that even a very, very trendy company can get set in its ways. It can start saying, oh, look, this is who we are. Our delivery mechanism is Facebook. It's a platform. We let people pretty much say anything they want. We're going to take down content if somebody commits suicide, really egregious acts. But they're letting a lot of hateful stuff get through. And they say, we're going to just pretend like that's okay. And they get into this mode that we're going to defend our platform. And you see Zuckerberg go to Congress and defend his platform. You see the leadership come out and say, we don't think it's our right to determine what's right speech or free speech, and we're going to let the marketplace decide. A lot of those kinds of comments, but that starts to diverge from the trend. That's not where people are going. Congress tells them that's not where they're going. The customers are telling them that's not where they want to go. And yet they manage to let themselves get tied in to their way of thinking and their way of running Facebook until this giant chasm emerges, and boom, all of a sudden they're embarrassed by this enormous boycott.
Now, Adam, in your opinion, and I have my own, do you think this is going to have a long-term effect on Facebook?
Well, no, I think that for two reasons, but why don't you go first?
Yeah. I had a conversation yesterday with a young lady at a restaurant. Of course, there's social distancing and so forth, so it was her and her mother looking at colleges next year. And interestingly enough, I overheard them talking about innovation, and I kind of piped in and we started talking. And I asked her, she was 18, looking at colleges, and I asked her which of the social media platforms she subscribes to. And her number one was TikTok. Her number two was Snapchat. Her number three was Instagram, and she did not have a Facebook account. She never had one. And so I think what might be happening is as these things evolve, the age and demographic of these social media platforms also evolve. And so I think that it might be a trend already that Facebook is losing relevance with maybe the younger viewers and is more, quote, in the middle, 18 to 55 or whatever. And maybe the younger generation coming up is not being influenced as much. So that's my personal thought, is that Facebook is already going on a slow descent, and something like this might have some lasting effect on, not game changing, but it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to sting.
Well, yeah, and I think what we need to do is separate Facebook, the company, from Facebook, the platform on this one. Facebook, of course, owns, as I said, Instagram and WhatsApp. And Instagram, as you mentioned, is one of the platforms that she's using. We are seeing a trend, and that trend is that the Facebook user, the Facebook platform user, is trending older. And so the bottom end, which is the 12 to 22-year-old market, that lower end, when I say lower, it's age lower, that's what I mean by that. That younger, let me use that term instead, that younger demographic, they are not as quick to use Facebook. But again, why? Because of the visualization, right? The younger you get, the more you're willing to move away from using words, especially written words, and move towards visualization. And of course, that's where Instagram is. And so we see an Instagram compete with TikTok and compete with Snap. So we start saying, okay, those three platforms are in competition. Now, right now, today, Instagram is substantially, it's 10 times the size of the other two, right? So right now, Facebook owns Instagram, and it's got a big lead. I do think we're going to see that continue. So we're seeing an aging of the Facebook platform. We've talked in previous meetings about the aging of the Harley-Davidson platform, right, and how your users go away for that. In this case, there were a lot of users in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that weren't using Facebook, who became attracted to Facebook in the last decade. And actually, a lot of people joined just in the last 6 months, right? Because with social distancing and COVID-19 problems, we saw that happen. So the younger generation's already been there. They already know what's there. It was the older generation that hadn't tapped in. Now they tapped in. So we're now seeing a skew to the older generation. But the important thing is who's got money and who's spending money, and where do the advertisers want to be. So advertisers will spend money to get younger people. There's no doubt about that. But they're very savvy to understand that you're going to spend a lot more money when you're 28 than when you're 18. Right? So the group they really like are 32 to 46, that young household age, when you buy a house, you're buying cars, you're having babies, all that. That demographic's the one you're spending almost every dime you got, and you're making a lot of dimes because it's your prime earning era. That's where the advertisers go. And so will Facebook be able to attract those back in? Yes, I think they will. Again, it's the Instagram platform, and it's the monetization of WhatsApp and the direction they're going with Messenger. That's where I think we're going to see more of that. The second thing, there's two other pieces of play into this. Zuckerberg, according to the Washington Post, Zuckerberg 2 years ago wanted to change those policies to control what the politicians were saying. And he let his leadership team talk him out of that. And that's a big lesson I want the people that are on our platform to recognize. When you're a leader and you're paying attention to trends, don't be surprised if your team gets locked into what you're doing and don't want to go with the trends. In other words, they're doing well, they're succeeding. And you say, oh, wait a minute, I'm really worried about this. And they'll say, well, wait a minute, we're doing fine. This is a big issue that leaders have to pay attention to. Zuckerberg let himself be convinced by a handful of people in his leadership team not to change and to, in fact, set in place policies that allow these politicians to have free reign. Big mistake. So that's a big lesson that people need to take away from this Facebook experience. Yeah. The second thing is, again, the advertisers kind of have to go to advertise on these platforms. Broadcast television is not going to come back. Right? That's just not going to happen. You can't advertise. There's not opportunities on Netflix and most of the paid channels. So these guys have to find eyeballs. So the men and women that are spending the ad dollars are looking for where the eyeballs are. They're reassessing. And what they're basically saying is clean up your platforms. If you want us to advertise on Twitter, if you want us to advertise on Instagram, if you want us to advertise on Facebook, clean this up. Give us content we're not scared of. If we don't want our ad showing up on YouTube next to some guy pulling his pants down or something like that, right? Clean up your content. Get control of your content. That's their message. I think that these companies will come around and make that happen longer term, so it probably won't hurt them longer term. But still, that's because they're huge. Hey, guys out there that are listening to you and I talk, Manny, we're in startups, entrepreneurs, small companies. For you, you make a mistake like this, it can kill your company. It could be the end of it because you were tied into doing business your old way and you didn't see the trend. If it can sneak up on a Facebook, imagine how easily it can sneak up on you. And that's the big thing I think we want people to take away from the situation with the boycott of Facebook today.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I'm also reminded of something that happened recently with regards to the Trump rally in Oklahoma, which is your home state, where legions and legions of TikTok followers got together and signed up for the event, and of course nobody showed up. So it kind of shows the power of the communication platforms, and really, like what I tell my kids, the most important thing in this world is an idea, right? And the idea of all these kids getting together and boycotting and having this sort of silent boycott really showed everybody a lesson of the power of social media platform. With respect to Facebook and these large corporations, besides cleaning up their act, so to speak, what else could you see Facebook doing to attract them back or to sort of set the stage correctly? Do you think Zuckerberg's going to come out with some speech where he's going to address this directly, or do you think they're just going to sort of nip and tuck as it progresses?
Well, again, once you're the size of Google or Facebook, the CEO's leadership position is important. So he's going to have to address this because he's gone through 2 years of denial, especially with these comments that he made in front of Congress. So he's going to have to come out with some statements about how the platform is going to change and how it's going to be more socially redeeming and how they're going to better serve those underserved and unserved markets. And that's what we want all of our leaders to do. Recognize those underserved needs. And if you do that, hit those needs and hit them where the trends are, then you can grow really fast like Facebook did. Miss it? Boy, you can have real problems at that point.
Yep, exactly. And just to round out this short blog today, short podcast, where can we expect as startup folks, entrepreneurs, small business owners, where can we expect our ad dollars to be spent on social media with respect to what's happening? Should we change our platforms, our strategies, or should we just continue on as before?
I'm always struck when I talk to startup companies at the naivety with which people think about spending advertising dollars or marketing dollars. You have no idea. They're like, oh, well, I want to be on television. Just broad statements. Know your target. Know your target. Who is it you want to appeal to? What is that underserved need that you want to talk to, and who has that underserved need? And then put your message in front of them. It's not, in today's world, you got to have a brand. People got to know who you are, okay? You can't expect some fulfillment house to create your brand. Amazon's not going to create your brand. So know what that underserved need is, know who has that underserved need, and then put your message to them. Spend your money directly to get to those people. If you want to reach people that are in their in the 12 to 24 age bracket, because you've got a product that appeals to them and they're not served on it, then TikTok, yeah, go for it. Instagram, go for it. Snap, go for it. That's where they're going to be, right? So pay attention, know your target first, then find the platform to put out your message.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's remarkable, like you say, how they just spend their money as they see fit. But just like with everything else and what we talk about, the market will dictate where things go. And being smart with your ad dollars and chasing that market that you're looking after is crucial.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Manny.
All right. Thank you for your time today. And we'll be talking to you soon on another SparkCom podcast. Take care.
Bye-bye.